my name is Olayide Odediran and I'm a director at Dyslexia Nigeria. We're a non-profit organization based in Lagos in Nigeria, and we educate, convene and empower stakeholders in Nigeria and in Africa to create an environment where dyslexics can thrive. Today I'm going to be talking about our efforts to optimize outcomes for inclusive education and dyslexia during COVID-19. I'll be sharing with you some of the challenges we've come across and creative ways we've gone about addressing them. As educators around the world know, COVID-19 brought the opportunity for us to embrace technology as a platform to provide quality, equitable education to those millions of children around the world. However, we also know that efforts for inclusive education have been largely based on one-on-one interactions over time, and that's where we still are mostly. Technology has not been able to address that during this time, and is something we've struggled with. So even though I'm going to go through a full presentation, I will invite you now and again at the end of my presentation to take a step back and think about how technology can be used to enhance inclusive education in particular for the many children who struggle with learning difficulties and disabilities around the world. But I'll start with some basics. What is dyslexia? Dyslexia is a Greek word that means difficulty with words, and basically that's difficulty with language, reading, writing, and spelling. It's a specific learning difficulty, which means that it doesn't affect your intelligence or other areas of your academics if you're a student, but it's specific to language and literacy. It's present at birth because it's brought about by the way the brain is structured, and therefore it's a lifelong challenge. However, because it's lifelong does not mean that it cannot be managed and its challenges overcome. We know that with conventional teaching methods it's not improved, but with specific interventions we can mitigate its challenges and give children with dyslexia around the world the opportunity to achieve their full potential. Talking about that full potential brings me to strengths of dyslexia that we see in so many successful individuals all around the world. Individuals with dyslexia are very creative people. They are very good at spatial awareness. They generate great creative ideas. They're excellent entrepreneurs as well. They're very dogged and can withstand a lot. And those are characteristics that are particularly specific to them. Examples, we have Albert Einstein, Steve Jobs of Apple, Richard Branson of Virgin, those in the arts like Whoopi Goldberg, Jennifer Aniston, Jamie Oliver, Keira Knightley, and the list goes on and on. But how does this tie to inclusive education? For us to think about this, I'm going to draw your attention to the Sustainable Development Goals, and specifically the fourth one that asks us to look at access to equitable, inclusive, quality education. And under that, there's a requirement that we also provide this for children with specific learning difficulties, which, as you now know, dyslexia is part of those. But also, if you look at another part of it that asks us to include persons with disabilities, those with dyslexia also fall under this category. The UK's Equality Act provides a very good platform for us to see why this is so, as it also classifies individuals with dyslexia as those with disabilities. So how does Dyslexia Nigeria facilitate inclusive education for children with dyslexia? We do this through a range of services that allow children with dyslexia to gain proper access to the curriculum and to then perform at or above grade level. I'll start with awareness. We create awareness in schools through reaching primary stakeholders, so we reach students themselves, teachers, special education needs coordinators, academic managers, heads of schools. And after creating awareness, we do universal screening. So we go into schools and screen all children in entry-level classes for dyslexia to see if they do show signs of dyslexia and might be at risk and need some support. After that, or even before that, depending on where the school is, we also provide training to teachers so that they can provide evidence-based interventions to children who are at risk of dyslexia. In the event that children do show extensive signs of dyslexia, we welcome them to our Center for Extensive Assessment and Profiling so that we can identify their unique profile of strengths and weaknesses and can recommend tailored interventions and courses of action for them to take. One-on-one tuition is one of the ways that we can then support after diagnostic assessments are complete. So now that you have an idea what Dyslexia Nigeria does, you can imagine how COVID-19 impacted on our efforts to facilitate inclusive education. I'll take you through a few of them. Before COVID, we could go into schools to provide awareness to all stakeholders, particularly to students as well. But with COVID happening, schools were closed several months on end, we were all in lockdown, and it was impossible to go into schools to deliver awareness talks. We used to be able to go into schools to also conduct universal screening that brought about broad-based early identification of children that could have dyslexia. But that was also halted because of the lockdown. Again, schools were closed and it was absolutely impossible to go in there to conduct any screening. At our center, we used to hold trainings for all stakeholders up to 4 times a month. But again, with the lockdown, that couldn't happen. And with considerations for social distancing, it was very difficult to bring that to life even when the lockdown was eased off. Before COVID happened, individuals with dyslexia could walk into a center for a diagnostic assessment and to sit with a professional one-on-one to go through a battery of tests that allow us to diagnose dyslexia. Those were negatively impacted during COVID. There were a number of aspects of our services we could put online, but assessments are really made up of both paper-based tests and computer-based tests, and it was impossible to put paper-based tests online, so those were seriously affected. That's a really big problem because without a proper diagnosis and evidence diagnosis as well from a professional, individuals with dyslexia might struggle to get the support that they need from their organizations and institutions. And finally, we used to be able to conduct one-to-one tuition in our center, but again, with lockdown and social distancing requirements, that was also halted. How did we address all these? I think the first thing I'd like to say before talking about how we addressed it is that there actually was some positive from remote learning. With parents working a lot from home and being able to participate in their children's online learning, they could also observe their performance and aspects of learning that they struggled with, and therefore they became very keen to find solutions. So this brought them one step closer than they used to be, where schools used to be between the students and their parents in terms of performance most of the time. This was a huge positive that we capitalized on. For starters, we enhanced our digital awareness efforts. We were able to successfully reach a large part of our critical stakeholders online to continue to create awareness about what dyslexia is and signs that it can manifest as. And we instituted and enhanced our Ask Dr. AD series, where our stakeholders could ask our diagnostic assessor questions and get answers. But it still remains difficult to reach students directly. It's something that we have to resume now that schools are reopening. We could share dyslexia checklists to support identification very widely so that parents and guardians everywhere could really see what the common signs of dyslexia are and be able to identify them in their children so that they can take next steps. With our online training, what we did was take all our modules from our in-person training and work with an online learning company to convert all of those materials to online modules so people could access them all over the world. Working with parents and their children in center more closely in this time, we've noticed and observed just how much emotional impact there is to diagnosing a child with dyslexia. And so we've stepped up and started to provide coaching services to both parents and children so that they can accept and successfully integrate a lot of our recommended strategies. In terms of our one-to-one tuition and our assessments, we now have kids who can come into the center from time to time, and we've instituted COVID-19 safe protocols in the center for conducting all of these. But there's one part that we still struggle with, and that's assessments. This is where we're inviting the rest of the education community to really begin to help us think through and work with us as we think through how we can use technology to enhance inclusive education in terms of assessments for dyslexia and perhaps other specific learning difficulties that require similar use of paper-based testing. This is where we're asking you to please think about how we could perhaps convert some of these to online materials and online engaging interactions that could allow us to continue to assess dyslexia from a distance. And with this, as I come to a close, I acknowledge and appreciate all educators for putting in so much effort to continue to bring quality education to kids around the world in such trying times. And as I wrap up, I invite you, please contact us. We'd love to hear from you at Dyslexia Nigeria. You can contact me at olayide.odediran@dyslexianigeria.com, and you can reach us in all of these ways on screen via email, or you can visit us or call us. We'd be delighted to hear from you. Thank you and have a